All right, aloha. We got a new setup, and I got my professional mic going. Can we get a sound check to make sure that this is all right? You guys can hear who is ever in chat right now. Bob, does everything sound okay? So, all right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. As the thumbnail suggests, we're experiencing food shortages in America, and really in the world, but I guess the only thing that Americans care about is what happens in America. So we're going to look at some things. Yeah, it's probably far better quality sound than just speaking into this. This is what I use to record all of my music in, so it's professional quality. I just never knew that my Chromebook could you could use it because you can't use the software that it's designed for, which is a music software, but you can use the mic. So we're going to get into a video here for those of you who are going to come in live, and then also for the people that are going to watch this for the replay. We're going to watch a quick 5-minute video, and it's from the channel of Ice Age Farmer, who's always doing great content on grand solar minimals, food shortages, and stuff like that. So he's a great source to go to, and he's where I get a lot of my information for. So I always love to give him credit when I use his material. So I have both this video and his channel linked down in the description below. So we're going to go ahead and share this video. Like I said, it's 5 minutes, but we're going to play it through because it's got a lot of good information. And so let's go ahead and play this.
Secretary and Governor, thank you so much for joining us. You know very well, this isn't just in South Dakota. You've got plants across the country, Iowa, Pennsylvania, for instance, that are shutting down because of these health concerns. How serious of a problem is this?
Well, it's a cascading series of events here that's really disrupting the entire food chain. Basically, you start ending school lunch programs, universities shut down, food service shuts down, tourism, hotels have low occupancy. At the end of the day, you basically have a tremendous amount of the overall supply of food having to be redirected at a time when people are feeling a little bit of a pinch in terms of the economy. Many unemployed people can't access the grocery store, go to the food bank. They have a supply issue. And now you have the cascading event of these facilities not having enough workers or having sick workers and having to shut down plants. So it's obviously a very difficult circumstance and situation. That's why it's going to be important for the USDA to do what it's going to do, which is to begin the process of buying commodities, buying and supplying them to food banks so that at least a number of folks can get access to food.
You know, just anecdotally, we've seen here in the Washington, D.C. area, some difficulty finding some staples like rice, for instance. I think it took me several grocery outings and to be able to find that. When or if those pantry staples, do you think that they're going to become unavailable more broadly? Flour, for instance, eggs, is that a real threat?
Well, it won't necessarily be a threat based on production. It's still going to be produced. The question is whether or not you're going to have more and more plants with sick workers and basically the decision to shut down those production facilities. At this point, there's plenty of supply and there's still processing capacity. Obviously, I think the key is not only keeping those workers healthy and safe, but also making sure that people have the resources either to go to the grocery store because you're providing unemployment checks more quickly, the stimulus money gets out more quickly, SNAP benefits get increased, or you basically provide commodities to food banks and allow for that supply chain to support people that don't have the ability to go into a store and purchase groceries. It's a combination of both.
You know, some of the video that we've been seeing of milk, for instance, being dumped. The American Farm Bureau and Feeding America wrote a letter saying that farmers are throwing out food that could be going to food banks. According to the Dairy Farmers of America, there are 3.7 million gallons of milk a day that are having to be thrown out. Explain that disconnect and that upset in the supply chain for us.
Well, when you shut down schools and shut down universities, you're shutting down a supply of milk that goes on a regular basis. Where does that milk go? There isn't enough retail sales to make up for the food service and school lunch program consumption. And export markets, you're basically seeing the same situation playing out in our export markets. So the question is, how can you get that milk to the food banks so it can be distributed to people in need? Here's the problem. Because of the trade relief that the Trump administration provided because of the trade wars, the Department of Agriculture didn't have the capacity to purchase commodities until recently. That is to say, they didn't have the money to be able to do it. Congress passes that large stimulus bill, provides USDA resources, but now they have a question of how do they distribute those resources? What commodities get the benefit of those resources? They're doing it at a time when staff levels are low, either because staff positions haven't been filled, or because they have people themselves who are sick, or they can't even meet together. So it's a complicated situation that requires, I think, a tremendous effort by USDA to be creative, minimize the regulation, maximize creativity so that you get product to people in need as quickly as possible.
I know we're hearing about certain products that are really difficult to come by. Of course, anything that is of a disinfectant nature, including just pure isopropyl alcohol. But we're also seeing some of these food staples that are taking time to replenish. At the same time, it does seem like Americans are able to look for alternatives. I wonder broadly overall, are you worried that we could get to a point in certain areas where there is not that food that people can get, even if they have to choose an alternative, especially for people who may be food insecure and reliant on SNAP or WIC?
Well, I think there are two concerns there. I'm deeply concerned about remote rural areas in terms of being able to access product. And secondly, any place that's got a highly populated, high dense situation where you've got a lot of unemployed people, food banks are really stressed right now. 30–40% increase in demand. At the same time, they can't rely on their retail base for donations. There isn't any excess food to provide them from the retail side. So it is incredibly important to get the USDA engaged, as they are, in purchasing these commodities and getting them to the food banks as quickly as possible and being creative about doing it. Maybe it's backing, if a food bank doesn't have refrigeration capacity, maybe it's backing a tanker that is refrigerated to the back of a food bank and distributing out of the tanker. I mean, there's got to be creative ways to overcome the barriers and obstacles that we're faced. Otherwise, there will be shortages. And once you get to shortages, there's obviously going to be a lot of concerned, deeply concerned people. And it's just going to put more pressure on cities, states, and on the federal government.
Yeah, especially if there are refrigerated tankers not in use because of what we've seen with other supply chain interruptions. Secretary Vilsack, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.
It is the group that is leading the...
All right, enough of that. So here's the situation. He comes up with a lot of good ideas, but the things that I guess they should have really stressed on was the fact that he's saying that not only do we have a big issue going on with everything being locked down, but we have a situation now where, for example, farms in Florida have just thrown out anywhere from 5 to 50 million pounds of tomatoes. I think it's 5 million pounds of tomatoes because they can't get it to the stores because everything is shut down. All of the distribution chains is starting to shorten and shorten and shorten and shorten. And we're going to get to a point where it's going to be just like 1933, 1929, 1930, anywhere in that time frame of the Great Depression, where we were starving in the midst of plenty, right? So that was the big hangup. What was the hangup of the 1929 stock market crash? Well, we had a slump of something, right? What was that something? Money. We woke up one day and it's like all of the money had just disappeared. And we were in breadlines. Even though there was no less crops, there was no less infrastructure, there was no less means of transportation. We just simply ran out of money. And let me tell you what that is the equivalent of. That's like going to a job site and showing up, and then the foreman says, sorry, you can't build a house today. There's not enough inches to go around. Of course, you say, what do you mean there's not enough inches to go around? We've got hammers, we've got nails, we've got wood, we even have tape measures. And the foreman says, oh, well, that's all well and good, but still, there's not enough inches to go around. You can't build a house today. You see, an inch is a measurement, a tool of measurement that we created to measure things. Money is also a tool to measure wealth. but it is not wealth in and of itself. So we're in this situation where we are again going to face a situation where Americans are going to starve in the midst of plenty. Between us shutting down our economies to not letting all, and here's the thing, you're about to see just how much we rely on illegal aliens to pick our fruit and to pick our vegetables. You're going to start hearing a different tune from both Republicans and Democrats, all alike, all those people who says, get out of my country, come in legally. You're going to wish they were here now, because that's how much we rely on illegal aliens when they migrate from Mexico up here, because no American wants to do that job. It's hard work. It doesn't pay that much, and they can pay them pennies on the dollar. But see, that's going away. So we're going to have food shortages. They're just going to rot in the fields. Now we could get together and organize, community parties where people go out and pick all of these fruit. But guess what? That'll be against the law because of social distancing measures. You just can't do it. So it's going to rot. As long as we keep this lockdown in place, as long as we can't go out, in which we can't, because look, there is a lot more people coming out in YouTube. I don't know if you guys have heard. Sweet, remind me of the name of that YouTuber whose brother just died, and then his father died of pneumonia a few weeks before that. I think it's Green something, but if let me know in the chat and I'll say his name when it comes. But anyway, this virus is hitting home to a lot more people. All these people who keep saying it's a hoax, they're starting to quiet down more and more and more, because it's starting to happen now. They know somebody that has died. They know somebody that is suffering from this. So it might be blown out of proportion, but it's not fake. Let's get that clear. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to share some more clips. Yeah, Green Greg's is the name of it, and I highly recommend using his go see his channel, and definitely take a look and listen to that. Now, so we're going to get in some articles that's going to touch upon what we just watched about more incentives to reinforce the idea that we're going to be going through some food shortages. Yeah, if you want to link it, sweet, that's perfect. So here we're going to get into something, and this is very, very concerning, because the wheat market is the bread and butter of the bread basket, right? Wheat is used for more things than you can imagine, more than corn, more than pretty much any other barley. Wheat is a lot of our staples. It goes into a lot of stuff. It goes into a lot of products you don't think it would go into, like hair products, like soap, like this, like that. So many things. So this is out of the Omaha Herald, and it is the coronavirus creates uncertainties for the wheat market. Let's go ahead and read this. The spring wheat markets continue to battle against COVID-19 uncertainties, as do many other markets. After a drop in prices in March, when much of the country took measures to shelter at home, in early April, the market attempted to rally a bit, but according to Jim Peterson, market director for the North Dakota Wheat Commission, the whole market seems to be holding a bit stronger than other commodities, Peter said. But we've hit the middle of the month. As we've hit the middle of the month, we're starting to see more pressure in the wheat market. The Minneapolis cash index for spring wheat is about $5.25 in late March, and then dipped down to as low as about $5.10, and then rallied back a bit, Peterson noted. But we're seeing further losses, and he pointed out that the cash price across North Dakota are essentially all fell below $5 for 14 spring wheat, and as low as $4.60 in some western locales to $4.90 in some eastern locales. And so what that means is just like the oil market, right? So when you have a price war with oil, which by the way, it's been below $20 for a couple of days now, you really need to pay attention to that. We're going to have a situation to where the price of wheat cannot sustain the production of wheat. So they have to be able to make a profit. That's the way any business is. I don't care what you do. If you're in the business to make money, you have to make a profit to stay in business. So with wheat dropping as drastic as it is, and with wheat crops as low as they are, because we lost a lot of our wheat crops for this grand solar minimum, what's going to happen is that these producers are simply just going to go belly up, just like a lot of the other farms across America are going belly up because they can't make a profit. And look, the government's not going to bail them out, or if they are going to bail them out, they're going to bail them out too late. And if it's not too late, you're going to have a situation where the government owns everything. And here we go. We're in George Orwell's 1984. What do you think the thought police could be represented as today? Your phone is your thought police. Anything that you think or feel. How often do you talk to your friends, or you even talk to yourself, and you tell the world your deepest secrets when you think no one is listening, well, that phone is listening. So here we have it touches back onto that, what the video is about. We're going to have a situation. Give it a second to load. We're going to have a situation where we're closing down more and more of our meat plants. And in this particular article, it's about them moving people from one meat plant to another to ensure spread. So let's read this real quick. So Chinese-owned Smithfield Foods shutters 2 more meat processing plants in Missouri and Wisconsin. How do we get rid of this ad? Boom. They make it so hard to see. Yes, I don't care. Get rid of it. Anyway, it shutters in Missouri and Wisconsin after massive coronavirus outbreak closed South Dakota factory, threatening American food supply chain. So here's just the highlights they're gonna tip on this. Smithfield on Wednesday closed 2 more plants in Missouri and Wisconsin. Plant in South Dakota closed after becoming the biggest single source of infection in the United States. Let's read that again. The plant in South Dakota closed after becoming the biggest single source of infection in the United States. Now, how much of that meat do you think has infection in it? Right? It's not something that just happened overnight. It's not something that I was looking at my TV like the camera was there. I mean, I'm high. It's not, we're in the situation where, and make no mistake, China owns Smithfield. So you may think it's an American company. Here's what they do. When they cut up their pigs and shit like that, they send their meat over to China to be processed because somehow it's cheaper to do that. And then it gets processed in China, and then it gets shipped back, and it's meat packaging so that it can be sold to the public market. It doesn't go from Smithfield plants to the supermarket. No, it does this whole weird turnaround where it gets processed in China, where this originated. So I'm starting to worry about how much of our meats has been contaminated before we closed it, right? So we're closing meat plants. We can't process meat. The people that are in the business of cows and of bulls and all this stuff in Texas, where they sell their cattle to the meat processing plants, they're going out of business because they're all closing down. And these meat processing or these cow herders, they're losing money because they can't sell these cows. It's hard to get feed because they're not making any money. A lot of the feed stores are closed. So you have this cascading situation where you just have a lot of stuff going on at once. So the CEO warns that packaging plants are a bottleneck in the U.S. food supply chain. Closures threaten to raise the price of pork, which it absolutely will, or cause temporary shortages. It's going to do both. There's no or, it's and. So let's reread that. Closures threaten to raise the prices of pork and cause temporary shortages. Smithfield was purchased by Chinese meat packaging giant WH Group in 2013. Think about that. Did you know that? I didn't. FDA says there is no evidence of virus transmission through food and packaging. Yeah, well, I don't exactly believe my government these days. I don't trust anything the fuckers say. All right. And so here's one more thing. We're going to get into the food lines part of this. The bread and circus has been removed from society. And now that we have removed bread and circus, panic and chaos always ensues. Hungry Americans are waiting in miles-long lines as food banks struggle to keep up with demand. Here's a look at how rising unemployment and dwindling volunteer pools are impacting the U.S. food pantries. And look, the fact that we have so many people reliant on food pantries all of a sudden has got to tell you the state of the economy we were in to begin with. This illusion that the government and the Federal Reserve has weaved in front of the eyes of the Americans for the last 12 years. The thing is that we never recovered from the 2008 global financial crisis. We simply put a band-aid on it. And instead of fixing the bubble that burst, we created what is called an everything bubble. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing an everything bubble pop. The coronavirus was simply the catalyst, the pinprick that popped that. And so you're seeing people in $80,000 cars in line to get food because they don't have any money. You know, they did a survey in August of last year that nobody pays attention to, yet the Money GPS, Jeremiah Babe, Silver Report Uncut, all kept saying these same things. Look, 40% of Americans couldn't come up with $500 in an emergency. 75% of Americans couldn't come up with $1,000. That's why you're seeing people in their $80,000 vehicles, not because they were stupid, but it's because just like most of everybody else in this country, they have been brainwashed into the idea that in order to be happy, they need this and that. And in order to finance this and that, you must take on debt because debt is a good thing. The more debt you have, the more your credit score goes up. The better credit score you have, the more debt you can accrue. Why do you think you can't buy anything or get anything on credit if you have a bad credit score? Because your bad credit score says that you're not easily brainwashed. Now, a lot of people made mistakes and stuff like that, but if you care anything about your credit score, you make an attempt to fix it. Well, that's gone. So all of these different crediting agencies are going away. Your banks are about to go through a collapse. So that's just a whole bunch of other stuff. But let's get back into this article before I get too far off topic. As national unemployment rates, so well, by the way, the national unemployment rate is just under 22 million Americans now. So we were 17 something last week. Now we're 22. And I said we'd get to about 20 or 21. So it was actually much higher than even I thought it was going to be. So as national employment rates swelled amid the coronavirus, food banks around the country have become overwhelmed with demand and are struggling to keep up due to the lack of volunteers. It's not just that, they're having a hard time keeping up with the lack of donations because everybody's out of a job or you're sheltered in place and you can't afford to go send food to another bank anymore. Everybody is starting to realize that in terms of crises, humanitarianism dwindles because more and more people start worrying about theirs and their own. And there's nothing wrong with that. We demonize that in a Christian culture or in any culture where we have this moral superiority, where we feel like the idea of how you should be in society is supposed to trump your natural instincts. It doesn't matter what religion or anything like that. Just any society that tries to parade itself on the moral high ground. So more than 16.8 million Americans have filed for unemployment in the past 3 weeks alone, bringing the total employment rates up to 13%. And see, that's actually much higher. This article is a couple days old. So it was 16.8 last week. It was about 17 million. Now it's 22, just a little bit under 22 million. So food banks across the country are struggling to keep up with the overwhelming demand for food as volunteer numbers sharply decline in the fact of the coronavirus, face the coronavirus. Morton's blah, blah, blah will go down. Meanwhile, the farmers are being forced. Now, here's what we were touching on earlier. Farmers are being forced to dump thousands of gallons of milk or destroy millions of pounds of fresh produce due to a lack of infrastructure to distribute to its food pantries in need. So it's just a whole slew of things that is going to cause a massive amount of headache. And unfortunately, we're in the situation now where food shortages are starting to really show up. So Bob Smith says that I'm a great thinker. Look, I think too much. That's the problem. This is why I don't sleep. I just think too much. Yeah, and he's stoned too. So I knew why I clicked. I didn't even read the second part. I knew why I clicked on that. So that's what I have in terms of information to share with you guys today. I kind of want to open up the forum a little bit and see if you guys have any questions or if you've learned something that I don't know or if you think differently. Because I always try to let people know in my videos. Back when I did a very, very different kind of set of videos before all this started. I just did philosophy videos where I discuss my own philosophy. I take concepts and themes and I break them down philosophically. And so I always try to tell people in any video that I make that it's just my opinion, right? Because here's the simple truth about humanity. And this is what my philosophy is all about. My philosophy is that I have figured out humanity. I figured out human nature, what makes us tick, why we're in the mess that we're in. And the truth is that you all know it too. It's no different. What I believe and what I think and what I feel may be unique to me, but the reason why I think and the reason why I feel and the reason why I act the way I do is because, like everybody else, I was raised in a very unique situation and very unique circumstances. I was uh, impressed and I was, I guess, influenced by my surroundings, by my parents, by my teachers, by my friends, by uh, your your religious groups and your communities. Everybody has a unique view on life. Everybody has a unique truth. That's why truth is subjective. Show me an absolute truth and I can debunk it. There are very few. I would say the only absolute truth that would go as far as to say is an absolute truth is that change is the only constant. But that's a self-defeating concept, because if change is always constant, then it's not constant, because by definition, change is a removal of constant. You see, that's the truth of life, is that all of life is contradiction. Everything is a contradiction. And the truth is the reason why we're so messed up in life is because we are simply trying to make the sense. We're trying to make sense of the senseless. Man's greatest fear, it doesn't matter what you're afraid of, it boils down to the same thing, and that is the unknown. Whether or not you're afraid of death, or you're afraid of snakes, or you're afraid of spiders, it leads to the unknown. It will always be the unknown that it doesn't matter what that unknown is. But the truth of the matter is that when it comes to death, we're afraid of what happens next. The most devout Christian is afraid. Deep down, even if they don't want to admit it. Because the truth is that we don't know. Because when you have faith and when you believe, those are two totally separate things from knowing. Well, we don't know hardly anything. Everything in the universe that we have observed, we have created definitions. We have created concepts, we have created abstractions, we have created social institutions to try to explain that which is unknown. And look, we have no clue how this universe works. We have no clue how big it is. We have no clue how we got here. We have no clue where we're going. So it's no wonder we're so terrified of what happens next. It's because everything that we know today is just man-made concepts that have been created to help life easier so that we can understand them, right? We created the laws of physics. We created this. We created that to help us understand it. So, and that was just but the whole point of that is that, look, anything that I speak of is not truth. Even if it may be true in terms of being able to look it up and say, look, it's just my opinion. Everything that I believe and feel and think is my opinion. But when it comes to food shortages, we can all agree that that's pretty much true, right? We can agree, at least right now in the short term, that that's not speculation. That's not an opinion. That's not just a feeling. That's a real thing. And you need to start waking people up to that, because it will get to a point to where you're going to go to the grocery stores and there just won't be any food there. I don't know what's going to go first, our currency or our food supply. We're either going to run out of food or we're going to have food, and a price of bread is going to be $1,000 because of the stagflation we're going to enter. By the way, we just reported 22 million Americans lost their jobs total, and stock markets was up 700 points because of the speculation that we're going to open up the economy in 2 weeks. So, all right. Now, Bob, you said my greatest fear is the loss of the Bill of Rights. I've seen death and been a nurse medic and been into war. I've been blown up and shot at. Why do you fear the loss of the Bill of Rights? Explain that to me. Why specifically do you fear? What happens if we lose our Bill of Rights? It's an unknown. Well, we don't know. It's the same concept. You still are afraid of what's unknown. What happens after that? You can guess. See, I've been a CNA for 10 years. I went to nursing school, but I decided not to do it. I was medically trained in the Army. So I haven't been to war, but I've seen what war does to people, right? And I can tell you what I think is coming next and what most likely is to come next, but I cannot tell you that I am 100% prepared for it. You're lying to yourself. Anybody who thinks they're 100% prepared, they're lying to themselves. You have to be prepared to admit that you're not prepared. Because when you put all of your eggs in one basket, when you make all of the assumptions that you're going to be able to be this badass GI hero, I'm not talking about you, Bob, but just like, when people, they talk themselves up, and reality sets in, and reality is unlike any movie you've ever seen when it gets that bad. No freedom. Yeah. The thing is, well, what comes after that when you have no freedom? Where do we go from there? When you have no freedom? Okay, let's go further down that rabbit hole. Totalitarianism, right? Where do we go from there? Can you tell me where we go from there other than what you've read in books? So it's still the unknown that we're terribly afraid of. It doesn't matter what that unknown is. So, but there are some things that aren't unknown, and that's the fact that we're having food shortages. And I just think that we're in a situation where the whole totalitarianism, the 1984, the thing that Bob is really afraid of, that's most likely going to come true. You see, the Constitution is kind of in the way right now, and we've been slowly eroding that Constitution with these new laws that are coming out, with these new regulations. The fact that in that video it says reduce the regulations. Well, regulations are in place for a reason. They're in place to ensure certain safeguards are taken to ensure that whatever the product you're producing, in this case food or medicine, that it's not going to kill thousands of people when you ignore all of these regulations, like testing for 6 months on animals, which you can protest that all you want. Would you want them to try it on you? You want them to try it on your friend? They're going to try it on animals first to see if it's healthy or unhealthy for humans. It's just, we're not even going to do that anymore. So whatever vaccine that comes out, don't take it. And I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just offering my advice that anytime you have a mass pandemic outbreak and there is a vaccine that shows up within or before an 18-month period, you need to raise some serious red flags, because it takes a minimum of 18 months to create a vaccine the safe way. And even then, you're going to have some issues. There was a country, I think Bengal in Africa, started rush testing a new vaccine that they had come up with for coronavirus, and it killed thousands of people, including a bunch of children, right on the spot. I think it killed 7 children that we know of on the spot. They injected to them and they died immediately. And so this whole connection with Bill Gates, with Trump, he said something about the working in unison with the Bill Gates Foundation. Look, we're in this situation where maybe the only way for us to get food, if you're not self-sustainable, if you live in one of these mega cities, the only way to get food is to take the vaccine, right? So Christians talk about the mark of the beast. In Hindu society, that's called the Kali Yuga. It's the same concept, right? The end of time. And so, yeah, you do what you want, but if you're not growing a garden, if you're not, doing your best to be self-sustainable, if you're not learning how to fish and how to hunt and how to start a fire, then you're going to be reliant on this government. You're going to be dependent on this government. And then we're going to enter a situation where if they introduce this bill where they're paying Americans $2,000 a month, that's more money than a huge portion of those Americans make working. So you're going to create a socialistic society that is dependent on the government, because why would they work if they can make more money sitting at home surfing YouTube, right? Why bother? Why bother go out to those fields and pick that fruit? You got the shot. You're healthy. Government's going to pay you $2,000 to stay at home and stay asleep. Why not? So that's my 2 cents on the matter. So where's my little thing? How do I get rid of it? So, all right. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming in tonight. It's a very short video because I don't think I need to expand it to an hour. You need to pay attention to what comes next. We are very quickly entering the territory where all of these amalgamations of black swans that have collided, when they start hitting the ground, it's like nukes hitting the ground. It just, every black swan event cascades events out of control. That's why it's called a black swan event, because it takes everything that is normal and it makes everything unnormal. But what happens when you have several black swans going off at once? That means that not only the everything bubble of the economy, but the everything bubble of humanity is about to pop. When we have never been this populated in our entire lifetimes, of as far as we know, for the last 10,000 years, there has never been more than 2 billion people on this planet. Yet in a matter of 300 years, we went from 2 billion to 8 billion. So yeah, no worry. I really appreciate you guys being here. Sweet. We're gonna have a situation. I lost my train. I love when I do that. I always lose my train of thought. So we're having an amalgamation of all these everything bubbles for humanity, because we have grown accustomed to this brilliant psychological concept of normalcy bias, right? We think that the world will always be the way it has always been. And we're tricked into that, because humans are so quick to forget our own history of how traumatic events have carved us and molded us and shaped us, right? The flu pandemic of 1918, nobody was prepared for that. Well, we have pandemics every 100 years. But when we have a pandemic during a grand solar minimum, that makes everything all the worse. You see, the times we're going through aren't biblical because they're biblical. They're described as biblical because they are cataclysmic for humans. They're catastrophic, because everything that comes with the grand solar minimum disrupts human way of life. The only thing that changes between one grand solar minimum and another is how advanced human civilization is, and how populated we are, and how ignorant we are. And I say we're pretty much really bad. We score very low in all of those marks. We're overpopulated. And I'm not calling for depopulation, but we are overpopulated. We haven't found out how to grow enough food to feed 8 billion people successfully, because if we could, there'd be no poverty. People wouldn't die of hunger every year. More people die of famine in Africa than people, die of pretty much anything else in any first world country, right? Hunger kills a lot of people, and that's going to multiply by a lot. The simple math of it is that we were barely able to make enough to sustain the amount of people that we have on this planet today. We have lost a significant portion of our crops across the world. I'm not going to give you links. Go find out for yourself. Look it up. Search 18 trillion locusts across Africa, the Middle East, and China. They're eating up crops by the day. Mice are coming in and eating all these crops that the farmers have left in the ground because it's too wet to pull or it's too cold to pull. And what do mice carry? They carry disease. Bubonic plague was carried by mice. Matter of fact, there's new cases of the hantavirus, the pneumonic plague, and a version of the bubonic plague. So we just we just have these amalgamation of black swans colliding, falling. So no matter what you think, no matter what our president is telling you, no matter what all of these people who think that they know what is best for the world and what's best for America, we're all going to wake up and realize that you can't lie your way through a shortage of food. You can lie yourself through a failing economy. You can lie through war, but you can't lie through a food shortage. And then once people realize that you can't do that, well, there's that famous saying is that any society is only 3 meals away from complete and utter chaos. How many of you have starved? How many of you have gone weeks on a cup of rice or less? Few have. There have been people that do. I grew up very poor, but I always had food. In fact, a lot of times my parents went into more debt so that we could have food. But I skipped meals. Some of my meals were meager, where we had a piece of chicken this big and maybe a small little potato at times, right? But I never starved, right? Few in this country have. As a matter of fact, if whether you like it or not, homeless people eat better in this country than people with jobs do in Africa. And see, we can't make fun of Africa anymore because we're going to become Africa. A lot of the world's going to become Africa. We're going to be overtaken by a lot of poverty, not only with finances, but with your human body. When you don't get a balanced meal, when you're not used to eating, your body's not used to skipping starches like potatoes and corns and all these different proteins that you get on a daily basis, your immune system will start to falter. You'll start getting sick of things that you normally wouldn't get sick of. People will start dying of things that they normally wouldn't die of because of our immune system being compromised with a lack of food. And forget those that are frail to begin with, those that have all of these immunocompromised, when the food runs out and they're having to meagerize their meals, there's going to be a lot more casualties from that. It's when a pandemic happens or any grand catastrophe happens, there are more cascading consequences than just what is obvious. With war, people always think, well, the biggest consequence is the death of the soldiers. No, it's more than that. It's what happens to the economies after. There's got to be a winner and there's got to be a loser. What happens to the losers? All those people are going to have to lose their jobs. The money gets taken. I don't even understand how Germany is a country. You got to give those people resilience for losing 2 world wars and still managing to not go completely under. You have to forget, or people forget, that the German people had no knowledge of what Hitler was doing. We didn't have any knowledge of what Hitler was doing. We didn't know anything about the concentration camps until after we got there. So the German people had little to do. The German people are in the same situation that the American people are in today. They're being duped by the political government. Only in our case, we're not being duped into being fanatics for Trump. We're being duped into either being never Trumpers or fanatics for Trump. So we have that situation. Yeah, so I don't want to tell them where you live, Sweet, unless you want me to, but where Sweet lives in her state, the governor just did something very stupid today. As a matter of fact, in my hometown, where I grew up in the city, and they just opened up something very major and very, I don't know, easy for this virus to spread. And so, I don't know. I'm very much afraid that American egotism is going to be the death of America, because I honestly believe that we have so many ill-prepared people, so many psychologically weak people in this country, that they cannot literally take living in their house for 45 days. That they're going to say, fuck this virus. I've got to get out and do something. And Trump is the same way. And they're really wanting to get, because all they care about is money. They don't care about you. They care about the money. Yet you're willing to put yourself on the front line of dying to make money because you believe money is real. When I say you, I mean anyone that has that mindset. So, yeah, we're definitely on the verge. Look, World War III is not even a guess either. Anytime you have famine, I'll go ahead and highlight that. Anytime you have famine, anytime you have pestilence, anytime you have food shortages, war always follows. Anytime you have a trade war with somebody, war follows. That's history. Look it up. Every time America has had a trade war with a country, we have went to war with it shortly after. And when I mean shortly, I mean within a couple of years. Don't believe me? Google it now. You'll be surprised what you find. Who are we at a trade war with? China. We've been speaking very harshly to China. China's been creeping up on our doorstep a little too much. American government is afraid of China taking over. They're the only real manufacturer of the world. They manufacture 80% of everything. And America has finally realized, okay, we're just a little too dependent on these people. So war is a guarantee. It's coming. Is it coming tomorrow? Maybe. Is it coming in a week from now? Maybe. It's anywhere from now till a couple of years from now. But the longer we go with food shortages and economies crashing and dollars tanking, the more suitable it is to create a war, because war is about the only thing that'll get us out of this sinking economy. Because if we go to war with China, well, you can guarantee that's a world war. But if we beat them, we wipe out all the debt we owed them. And we can just restart like that. Or we all speak Chinese 10 years from now. Who knows? But, you know, there's always food in nature. And see, here's the thing. I really recommend, if you can, start buying books on how to farm, how to garden. Get books on how to identify wild plants, wild berries, what is edible, what is not edible in your state, as well as within a few states around you. And there's books that usually have whole sections as well as one state, and even in like certain counties that you can get these books. Because don't rely on online. We may not always have internet access. This is why medical, for sure. Yeah, we have tons. My mom's a nurse. Like I said, I'm medically trained. We have tons of books on different types of not only herbal remedies like housewives, housewife remedies, stuff like that, but medical supplies. Books on how to use medical supplies, like how many people can give an IV, how many people know the difference between, hydrochloroquine and chloroquine, right? There's a big difference. This idiotic person killed themselves because they heard Trump talking about hydrochloroquine, and there is a certain chemical in fish tank water that has chloroquine in it, but not hydrochloroquine. So they drank it like an idiot and died. So, and that's completely on them. But the problem is that people can't think for themselves anymore. So when you have a population of sheeple that believe everything that is being, regurgitated out of the mouth of all the media, of all the different big heavy hitters across our governments, it's no wonder. You want my opinion? We should remove the warning labels from everything and let the dumb weed themselves out. Truthfully. You ever notice anymore? Like, I don't have anything to say for or against what's called the SJWs, the social justice warriors. Where are they at now? Where are their signs? Where are their protests? And you see, I'm going to end this video here in just a minute, but I'm going to give you a quote. And this quote has more relevance in this time because we are transitioning. And here's the quote. Hard times create hard men. Hard men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. So what we're entering is we're transitioning now from easy times to hard times because of weak men. And weak men is men and women. SJWs, people that want to dye their hair color and be called 18 different pronouns. You see, you can only pursue that type of goal and that type of thing that is meaningless, by the way, when you live in easy times and everything, all of your basic necessities are provided for, like food, water, and entertainment. The moment those disappear, those things that you thought were important disappear too. Because when you're in hard times, nobody gives a shit what pronoun you want to be called. Nobody gives a shit what you got between your legs and what you want to be identified. Nobody cares. They identify you as a threat if they see something in your hands. That's what they're going to identify you as. They're gone. No more SJWs. For that, I'm happy. I got sick of seeing it. Weak people on TV every day. Weak people on social media every day. Those weak people are gone. So I'll end with this video. We are definitely now going from easy times to hard times because of weak people. So all right, guys, I'm gonna cut it out tonight early, and I really appreciate my Ohanapono coming. If you guys don't know, I usually say Ola ma Ohanapono. Ohanapono just basically means my good family. Pono means good, and Ohana means family in Hawaiian. So, and basically it's hello, my family, goodbye, my family, and I love my family. Aloha means all of that. So aloha, my Ohanapono, and you guys have a great night.